What's your tech stack? Does it involve React? I think if you're a full stack designer, full stack developer, backend, front-end developer, React is a very, very, very common skills that a lot of people have. And one of the reasons is because a lot of posts require you knowing React. And like everyone says, React is a tool and it's a very useful tool, but it has its uses. So here's an article that says React won by default and it's killing front-end innovation. An article written by a software developer, Lawrence Stewart, on lawrencestewartstu.art. And I'm interested in reading this because for me as well, I just learned React because that's what a lot of people seem to be using. That's what a lot of job descriptions had on their required technologies. So, yep. So I just kind of learned it by default, I guess. React by default has hidden costs. Here's a case for making deliberate choice to select the right framework for the job. React is no longer winning by technical merit. Today, it is winning by default. The default is now slowing innovation across the front-end ecosystem. When teams need a new front-end, the conversation rarely starts with what are the constraints and which tool best fits them. It often starts with let's use React. Everyone knows React. The reflex creates self-perpetuating cycle where network effects rather than technical fit decide architecture. Meanwhile, frameworks with novel architectural approaches struggle for adoption. Svelte uses runtime signals with compile time optimizations for smaller bundles. Solid delivers fine-grained reactivity without virtual DOM tags. Quick achieves instant startup via resumability. These approaches can outperform React's model in common scenarios, but they rarely get a fair evaluation because React is chosen by default. React is excellent at many things. The problem isn't React itself, it's the React by default mindset. I would love to see like the examples of these, where Svelte is better than React, Quick is better than React, and so on. I think there will be an eye-opener for a lot of people, including myself. The innovation ceiling. React's technical foundation explains some of today's friction. The virtual DOM was a clever solution for 2013's problems, but as Rich Harris outlined in Virtual DOM is pure overhead. It introduces work modern compilers can often avoid. Hooks addressed class component pain, but introduced new kinds of complexity, dependency arrays, stale closures, and misused effects. Even React's own docs emphasize restraint. You might not need an effect. Server components reduce client-side JavaScript and enable server-only data access, but add architectural complexity and new failure modes. The React compiler is a smart solution that automates patterns like use memo, use callback. Its existence is also a signal. We're optimizing around constraints baked into the model. React 19.2 released October 2025 continues this pattern. The new use effect event hook exists specifically to solve dependency array problems with effects. This is a patch for complexity that Hook themselves created. Frameworks like Svelte and Solid have similar untracked features, but they use automatic dependency tracking by default, requiring untrack only. In edge cases, React requires manual dependency arrays for every effect, then adds use effect event to work around the limitations of that model. The same release introduces an activity component for managing visible hidden app states and new partial pre-rendering APIs. Each addition increases the API surface developers must master, while alternatives achieve similar outcomes with simpler primitives. Contrast this with alternative approaches. Svelte's 5 runes use runtime signals for fine-grained reactivity. Solid's fine-grained reactivity update updates exactly what changed. Quick's resumability eliminates traditional hydration. These aren't incremental tweaks to React's model, they're different models with different ceilings. Innovation without adoption doesn't change outcomes. Adoption can't happen when the choice is made by reflex. The technical debt we are all carrying. Defaulting to React often shifts a runtime and reconciliation cost we no longer question. Even when it's fast enough, the ceiling is lower than compile time or fine-grained models. Developer time is spent managing re-renders, effect dependencies, and hydration boundaries instead of shipping value. The broader lesson from performance research is consistent. JavaScript is expensive on the critical path. Beyond performance, we've centered mental models around React patterns instead of web fundamentals, reducing portability of skills and making architectural inertia more likely. The loss isn't just performance, it's opportunity cost when better fit alternatives are never evaluated. I think one of the things is that in order to achieve this kind of insight, to be able to choose a better alternative, we have to have a pretty good idea on each of these alternatives. And yeah, I think that is also an issue. The frameworks being suffocated. Svelte signals with compile time optimization. Svelte 5 combines runtime signals for fine-grained reactivity with aggressive compile time optimizations. No virtual DOM, smaller runtime than React, components compile to efficient, targeted DOM operations. The mental model aligns with web fundamentals, but not enough jobs keeps Svelte adoption artificially low despite its technical strength for many use cases. Real-world examples like the Guardian's adoption of Svelte for their frontend demonstrate measurable gains in performance and developer productivity. We reported reductions in bundle sizes and faster load times. For instance, as detailed in Wired's article on Svelte, developer Sean Wang reduced his site size from 187 kilobyte in React to just 9 kilobyte in Svelte by leveraging its compile time optimization for smaller bundles. This leads to faster, more effective, efficient apps, especially on slower connections. That's a huge difference. I recently saw that by default, React comes with around 2,000 libraries, and that's crazy. Solid. The reactive primitive approach. Solid delivers fine-grained reactivity with JXX familiarity. Updates flow through signals directly to affected DOM nodes, bypassing reconciliation bottlenecks. Strong performance characteristics, limited mindshare, as outlined in Solid's comparison guide. This approach enables more efficient updates than React Virtual DOM, with precise reactivity that minimizes unnecessary work and improves developer experience through simpler state management. While prominent case studies are scarcer than for more established framework, this is largely due to Solid's low adoption. Yet anecdotal reports from early adopters suggest similar transformative gains in update efficiency and code simplicity, waiting to be scaled and shared as more teams experiment. Quick, the resumability innovation. Quick uses resumability instead of hydration, enabling instant startup by loading only what the current interaction needs. This requires all application state to be serializable, which imposes architectural constraints but delivers measurable performance gains. Ideal for content-heavy sites, slow networks, or mobile-first applications. According to Quick's Thin Quick Guide, this is achieved through progressive loading and serializing both state and code. Apps can thus resume execution instantly without heavy client-side bootstrapping, resulting in superior scalability and reduced initial load times compared to traditional frameworks. Success stories for Quick may be less visible simply because fewer teams have broken from defaults to try it, but those have report dramatic improvements in startup times and resource efficiency, indicating a wealth of untapped potential if adoption grows. All three under adopted not for lack of merit, but because the default choice blocks trying them out. Furthermore, React's API surface area is notably larger and more complex than its alternatives, encompassing concepts like hooks, context, reducers, and memorization patterns that require careful management to avoid pitfalls. This expensive API contributes to higher cognitive load for developers, often leading to bugs from misunderstood dependencies or over-engineering. For example, in Cloudflare's September 12, 2025 outage, a use effect hook with a problematic dependency array triggered repeated API calls, overwhelming their tenant service and causing widespread failures. In contrast, frameworks like Svelte, Solid, and Quick feature smaller, more focused APIs that emphasize simplicity and web fundamentals, reducing the mental overhead and making them easier to master and maintain. I think this article is definitely convincing me to trying out these Svelte, Solid, and Quick. I mean, I think the issue is that there are so many things I want to try out, but I don't really want to move on before mastering one thing, kind of thing, But having said that, though, I chose React by default, and I would love to see what other options there are. So it would be nice to see at least dedicate some time to explore these options. I think that's important. The network effect prison. React's dominance creates self-reinforcing barriers. Job postings ask for React developers rather than front-end engineers, limiting skill diversity. Component libraries and team muscle memory create institutional inertia. Risk-averse leaders choose the safe option. Schools teach what jobs ask for. The cycle continues, is independent of technical merit. That's not healthy competition. It's ecosystem captured by default. So how do we combat this? I guess this article like this is one way to combat it. Yeah. Breaking the network effect. Escaping requires deliberate actions at multiple levels. Technical leaders should choose based on constraints and merits, not momentum. Companies can allocate a small innovation budget to trying alternatives. Developers can upskill beyond a single mental model. Educators can teach framework agnostic concepts alongside specific tools. Open source contributors can help alternative ecosystems mature. Change won't happen automatically. It requires conscious choice. Framework evaluation checklist. To make deliberate choices, use this simple checklist when starting a new project. Assess performance needs. Evaluate metrics like startup time, update efficiency, and bundle size. Prioritize frameworks with compile time optimization if speed is critical. Team skills and learning curve. Consider existing expertise but factor in migration paths. Many alternatives offer gentle ramps, e.g., Solid's JSX compatibility with React. Scaling and cost of ownership. Calculate long-term costs, including maintenance, dependency management, and tech debt. Alternatives often reduce runtime overhead, lowering hosting costs and improving scalability. Ecosystem fit. Balance maturity with innovation. Pilot in non-critical areas to test migration feasibility and ROI. The standard counterarguments, but ecosystem maturity. Maturity is valuable and can also entrench inertia. Age isn't the same as fitness for today's constraints. Additionally, a mature ecosystem often means heavy reliance on third-party packages, which can introduce maintenance burdens like keeping dependencies up to date, dealing with security vulnerabilities, and bloating bundles with unused code. While essential in some cases, this flexibility can lead to over-dependence. Custom solutions tailored to specific needs are often leaner and more maintainable in the long run. Smaller ecosystems in alternative frameworks encourage building from building from fundamentals, fostering deeper understanding and less technical debt. Moreover, with AI coding assistants now able to generate precise custom function on demand, the barrier to creating bespoke utilities has lowered dramatically. This makes it feasible to avoid generic libraries like Lodash or date libraries like Moment or date functions entirely in favor of lightweight app-specific implementations. But hiring follows demand. You can de-risk by piloting alternatives in non-critical paths, then hiring for fundamentals plus on-the-job training. But component libraries are bloat, useful primarily when delivery speed trumps everything else. Building components around your application-specific needs creates leaner solutions because you are not shipping code for problems you don't have. Framework agnostic design systems and web components reduce lock-in while preserving velocity when you do need shared component. But stability. React's evolution from classes to hooks to server components to React 19.2's use effect event and activity components demonstrates constant churn, not stability. Alternative frameworks often provides more consistent APIs. But I wonder these alternatives, as they grow, they will become more and more, or they will start having more and more these issues that React has, that this author is bringing up. But proven at scale. jQuery was proven at scale too. Past success doesn't guarantee future relevance. The broader ecosystem harm. Monoculture slows web evolution when one framework's constraints become de facto limits. Talent spends cycles solving framework-specific issues rather than pushing the platform forward. Investment follows incumbents regardless of technical merit. Curricula optimize for immediate employability over fundamentals, creating framework-specific rather than transferable skills. Platform improvements get delayed because React can handle it, becomes a default answer. The entire ecosystem suffers when diversity disappears. The garden we could grow. Healthy ecosystem requires diversity, not monocultures. Innovation emerges when different approaches compete and cross-pollinate. Developers grow by learning multiple mental models. The platform improves when several frameworks push different boundaries. Betting everything on one model creates a single point of failure. What happens if it hits hard limits? What opportunities are we missing by not exploring alternatives? It's time to choose frameworks based on constraints and merit rather than momentum. Your next project deserves better than React by default. The ecosystem deserves the innovation only diversity can provide. Stop planting the same seed by default. The garden we could cultivate through diverse framework exploration would be more resilient and more innovative than the monoculture we have drifted into. The choice is ours to make. Yeah, I really like this article. I really like this idea, and I would really like to see more diversity. But so far, I think the biggest thing is that when I see the job postings, it usually asks for React, and like it says, and it kind of creates this cycle because it asks for React. Everyone tries to learn React, everyone tries to teach React, and that's what everyone feels comfortable with, and we use React, and it just creates the cycle. I guess going forward, maybe there are more cases where a job posting is asking for someone who knows a bit of all, so that they can evaluate which one, advice on which one we should go for. But yeah, usually there will be more senior positions, I guess, where some decision making is involved rather than just pure development on existing framework. But yeah, let me know what you guys think. If you use something else, if you agree with this, if you don't agree with this. Thank you guys for watching. Like and subscribe.